When we think of leadership, we often don't necessarily think at the highest levels, the highest political levels. However, those are the leaders that have the most impact. They're the ones that affect not only thousands of lives, but millions of lives. Today, my guest, Anton Gunn, and I discuss how he found his passion for leadership, his experiences working with President Barack Obama, leadership issues which are not known to everyone at the presidential level, how you build a world-class leadership culture, such as the one in the White House, and the biggest mistakes that people make in their leadership roles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, Episode 68, Leading by Advising President Obama, with Anton Gunn. Hey listeners, welcome back to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you here. It's your host and founder, Scott McCarthy. And wow, we have a doozy for you today, ladies and gentlemen. I am stoked. I was stoked when I found out about today's guest and his background. And I'm even more stoked to bring this episode to you today. Like, it's been a long time. Well, no, really. No, it hasn't been a long time at all. I'm stoked about every episode. But seriously, a guest with this different experience isn't something that you get every day. Like, I get people asking to come on the podcast every day from various different backgrounds and different, just different ideologies and pushing things such as culture, organizational change, leading with heart, principles of leadership, all those types of different topics. What I don't get across my desk every day is someone who has been an advisor to the President of the United States. And that's what we have for you today. Can't wait for you to dive into this interview I had with Anton, because I truly enjoyed it. We had a riot. But before we dive into the lessons today and the topics today, I just wanted to ask you if you're ready to up your leadership game yet or not. If you wanted to expand your knowledge even more than what you're getting out of this podcast, if you wanted to interact with more leaders out there, interact with myself, and if you said yes to all those, then what are you waiting for? Come join the Moving Forward Leadership Mastermind. By the way, it's free. And achieve all of that. If you're ready to move to the next step, you're not going to do it by doing what you're currently doing, because you would have already been there. So come, join us in the mastermind, shoot me your questions, interact with my guests that are in there, because I invite all my guests to the mastermind, and let's basically geek out over leadership, all for free. Now, if you're interested, you can do one of two things. You either go to the show notes, which is movingforwardleadership.com/6868, or you just go to movingforwardleadership.com/mastermind. Or, finally, you can go to Facebook and Google Moving Forward Leadership, and you'll find both the page and the mastermind. All right. One of those ways is going to get you in. And yeah, come join us. If you're not in with us right now, come join us. Come chat leadership. Don't be shy. Introduce yourself. And seriously, let's have a great conversation all about leading other people, because that's why we're here, right? We're here for one reason only, so that you can become a better leader. And that applies to whatever background you have. So let's talk about today. Shall we? Today's episode. Today you are going to get a great perspective that we haven't had on the show before. And that is someone who is advising the most senior leader in the United States. The former most senior leader in the United States, being Barack Obama. Anton, this guy's got a huge background that, like, I can't even go through it all. He's a multiple author. He has 2 books. He's been on Forbes, Inc., Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, etc., etc. He's got his own company, the 937 Strategy Group, which is a consulting practice, and it provides services to leaders in healthcare organizations. He's got a background in healthcare, and that's where he was advising President Barack Obama. just a wide range of experience, qualification, and endeavors. So when I learned about him and all this, I said, Scott, you got to have this guy on the show. And Anton was gracious to come on the show, and we had an absolute riot. So today you're in for a treat. Like I said, you are going to get a different perspective that we've never had on the show. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Anton Gunn discussing how to lead by advising President Obama. Anton, man, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Happy to be here with you. How you doing?
Doing great. It is the end of Feb. They say spring is coming in the next 3 weeks, and I don't know, for you it's not such a big deal, but for me up here in Canada, I can't wait.
Yeah, it probably is a big deal for you, but down here in Charleston, we had 78 degrees last week. Today it was 69. So spring is always here, and whether it's February or not, it's always spring.
Dude, I got one of those like big power transformer blocks on my front lawn, I should say. Ugh. I can't see it right now from snow.
Wow.
It's engulfed.
Yeah. And I haven't seen snow in like 4 years. So
I can't wait to retire. Anyway, leaders or the audience that didn't come to listen to us about weather and stuff like that. Small chit chat. But your profile that I found is pretty extensive, pretty interesting and diverse. So, you know, my first question to all my guests is give a bit of background, but I think for you, I'm going to have to limit you for like a little bit of time, man.
Yeah. I'll keep it brief, and I'll hit probably the most important points is, I'm a former senior advisor to President Barack Obama, particularly in the healthcare space is where I was his advisor. I'm also a former elected official, a member of the South Carolina House of Representatives. I served in the state legislature in South Carolina for one term. And the other thing that I'll say about me is that I played college football, learned a lot of leadership playing football on the offensive line in the SEC. And I've been a speaker, international speaker, and leadership consultant for many, many years, working with major companies like Sodexo, KPMG, Fortune 500s. I do some work with Microsoft. So there's a lot of companies that I work with, and all of it is focused on how to help people to be better leaders and build a world-class leadership culture that is full of great teams, high-performing leaders, and people who believe in the value and the mission of the organization because the organization believes in them.
Oh, awesome. You and I are going to have a great show because we see eye to eye on pretty well everything there. And like, no word of a lie. And I can prove this because I did a podcast episode on another show. But Barack Obama is actually on my top of my list of guys I would love to get, I don't know, 5 minutes to an hour with. So for you to actually like sit there and tell me you were an advisor to him, I was like, dang, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a pretty surreal experience to not only work for him, but to just get to know the man and his wife and his family. And it's just pretty incredible experience. I lived a remarkable life, and I'm just grateful for every opportunity I've been given. Yeah,
for sure. You know, Final Tangent is one of my coworkers is currently reading Michelle's book right now. So,
great read.
Yeah, I haven't picked it up. I'm waiting for him to drop a book. I'm sure it's going to happen someday.
Well, he's coming. He's coming. It's going to take him a while, but it's coming.
Awesome. So where did all this passion for your leadership come from? Like, I could just feel it oozing out of you. So it's awesome. Where did that come from?
Probably one of the most unconventional places that you would ever have a guest mention their leadership came from. My love and passion for leadership came from hip hop music and culture.
That's a winner. I will admit, that's a winner.
Yeah. So, I grew up in the, late 80s, early 90s when hip hop just got started is when I was a preteen or teenager, really, falling in love with hip hop. And one of my favorite groups, actually the favorite group of all time, is a group called Public Enemy. Most people don't know Public Enemy's music today, but you do know one member of Public Enemy. His name is Flavor Flav. A lot of people know him because he was on a reality show. But Public Enemy was a progressive social justice hip-hop group. I grew up in an era of hip-hop where it wasn't about partying and drinking and doing drugs and chasing women. The hip-hop that I listened to was about social injustices in our community and what we need to be doing about them. Chuck D talked about hip-hop as the CNN of the community. And so the music that I talked about, it was an anti-drug message. It was an anti-crime message. It was focused on developing yourself as a leader. And in one interview in 1989, the reporter asked Chuck D, what's your goal for your album? Do you want to sell 1 million copies and go platinum? Chuck D says, no, I don't want to go platinum. My goal is to create 5,000 new leaders in the Black community. And when Chuck D said that, I said, I want to be one of those leaders. And I want to learn everything that I can do to make my community better, to make things better for people who don't have many opportunities in life. And literally, that's where my leadership journey began, is wanting to be a change agent in communities to end drugs and petty crime and social ills that affect poor people and people of color, people who were marginalized on the edge of society because they couldn't get an opportunity. But how do we make things more fair, more right, more just and equitable for them? And that's where my leadership journey began.
That's amazing. And I love that whole, the core of that message. It doesn't matter where it comes from, but the fact that you just want to make this place a better place, that to me, that's the true sign of leadership, right? And the true sign of a good leader is, 1% better is one of my mottos.
Yeah.
Every day, man, 1% better, right? No matter if that's myself or my organization, my team, it's all about 1% better, and just feel that. That's pretty incredible.
And you know what else to add to that? 1% better is a great way to frame it. This is what I think a leader's biggest responsibility is. Your job as a leader is to make it right for the people that you lead. That's your job. Whatever it is, your job is to make it right. So if it's wrong, make it 1% right, or make it 10% right, or make it 100%. Well, whatever it is, it's your job to make it right. If your team members come to you with a problem and say, listen, we want to get X done, but we don't have A, B, and C. Your job as a leader is to get them A, B, and C so they can get X done. Yeah. And so if more leaders took the mindset that says, you know what, it's my job to make it right for the people that I lead, regardless of who they are, or it's your job to make it right for your customers. It's your job to make it right for the sales team. It's your job to make it right for whoever you serve. If you have that mentality, then we get organizations that are more just, more fair, better than they were the day before, because you committed yourself to making it right.
I love it, because I actually preach something I refer to as extreme leadership, and then basically it boils down to your people are the reason for your success and you're the reason for the failures, right? And we're talking same lingo, man. No Different doubt. Words, same thing though.
That's right, without a doubt.
Oh man, so like by far the coolest thing that drew me about you is like your experience with a U.S. president. Mm-hmm. So, let's talk to me about that. What were your experiences like up there working with Barack and not just the man himself, but like leadership at that the highest strategic level that you could be a nation's leader.
Yeah. So it was pretty powerful. Every day was a phenomenal day to go to work. It was some of the hardest work that I've ever done in my life, because if you know anything about American politics, it's a blood sport right now. And so it was a blood sport then. So it's really hard to hear some of the things you hear people say about you, your boss, your motives, your character. It was just a lot of negative energy, but you had this profound sense of honor and obligation that you were doing something that was legendary, that was historic, and that was going to make a difference in the lives of people that you would never see and never meet. And so it was inspiring to come to work to say, I'm serving my country. I'm serving to make a difference for my country. And Barack Obama was the kind of leader that you want to run through a wall for. I mean, a lot of the principles that I put into my book, the presidential principles, were around the things that he did to inspire me to take action and want to be a difference maker in the lives of other people. And so when you have a leader who, not just has some swagger, as everybody knows, he's got a little swag, but he's a leader who literally cares about the people. That's the reason why. I mean, he could have done anything in his life. I mean, when I mean anything, Barack Obama has 2 Ivy League degrees, one from Columbia, another one from Harvard. He could have been an investment banker or some Wall Street lawyer or some corporate lawyer making millions of dollars and just took care of himself and his family. But instead, he made a decision to commit his life to serving other people as an elected official and a public servant. And so it's pretty inspiring to see somebody who could literally write their own ticket and be independently wealthy for themselves and take care of their family and just ignore everybody else, but make a commitment to serve others. And that oozed out of him every day that I was around him and that I saw him make decisions and take leadership positions, that it was never about him. It was always about the people that he was empowered to lead and given the opportunity to lead. And so it made me want to work hard.
No doubt. And, we followed him quite closely up here in Canada. Like, no offense, I generally don't really care too much about U.S. presidents and Clinton, Bush's. Bush Jr. had a little bit more impact with me and my background because I'm actually full-time Canadian Army by day. So, right. So, but I definitely personally followed Barack a lot more. Yeah. What are, when you're working at that level, and the audience definitely has a good idea what leadership is in the medium context, right? Mm-hmm. Working with their teams, helping them day to day, making decisions, making calls, empowering them to get their job done at that tactical level. But like, what are some of the things that the average person wouldn't know about leadership at that ultra strategic level that you've come across?
Yeah. I think the thing that people are not aware of is how consequential your decisions are.
Oh yeah.
and how much thought you have to put into making a decision. And so, the challenge with that for some people is that when you're presented with a lot of information, that information can cause you to have paralysis by analysis. Is that you're studying so long that you're so worried about making the wrong decision because of the consequential nature of the decision. So, for instance, you being in the Canadian Army, the context would be, if you send troops into harm's way, that can be a real consequential decision if you make the wrong decision at the wrong time. And so the magnitude of that literally weighs on you every day. And it's a burden, but it's a burden that many leaders, particularly the president, has to carry, whether for the time that they're in office. And so they're complicated decisions. They're not simple decisions at all. And so most people think that, signing an executive order or signing this thing into law is some simple thing, just a stroke of a pen, but without thinking all of the complicated consequences for making that decision.
Yeah. We often call that the burden of command, right? Mm-hmm. And your calls on, for us on the ground level could potentially have, life consequences for your troops. So, and how that carries through. And I had a former guest, John Conrad on, actually, he was my first guest, believe it or not, and a former Canadian colonel. And he actually has post-traumatic stress disorder due to, burden of command and going through all that.
Hard.
Oh yeah, it's totally hard. And actually, he's going to come back sometime because he wrote a second book all about PTSD and what he refers to as walking wounded. So just got to sync our calendars because he's a busy man.
I bet he is.
Oh man. But yeah, I could definitely see that whole analysis by paralysis. I could feel how that would be a huge issue up there and how someone could definitely get sucked in. But at a certain point, you just got to make the call and with what you got, the information you got at the time and the analysis that can be done and the advisors you got around you,
Yeah. Well, that's actually the second point that I would make is that a leader is only as good as the people that they have around them. And the worst kind of leader you want to be is to have a bunch of yes people around you. Barack Obama didn't have yes people around him. He wanted to make sure that he was the least intelligent person in the room when it came time to make a decision. So that I'm probably saying it in an inartful way, but he found the best people, people who knew more about something than he did. And even if they had competing positions, so I might have an idea about how to do something one way, and two other people may have an idea to do something a different way. He wanted people to debate it out and give him all sides and all consequences of it, and trust that these people were the smartest people to know about this issue, to help him to think through the decision. And he ultimately made the decision. But he made the decision well-informed, well-versed, and heard all sides of the arguments, the good and the bad, to make the best decision.
No, it makes absolute sense to me, man. And I agree with you that you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, but you got to be the guy that can actually make the call on the end of the day. Get surrounded by your advisors, the best team you can make, the most intelligent guys on the various topics that you got to worry about, and ultimately just get all the information and weigh the factors. And I know I'm kind of making it sound pretty easy, especially at national level stuff. It's definitely not that easy, but ultimately that's what it boils down to, is getting advice, listen to the information, and making the best call you can at the time. So, So at that level, I'm sure Barack had like an awesome culture. It felt like there was a great culture within the White House and the team that surrounded him. No doubt you've picked up on that. So how do leaders go about building that type of culture within their organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of the things that I focus on, is teaching people how to build a world-class culture. We had a world-class culture inside of the administration. And if you really want to build a world-class culture for your team, there's a few fundamentals that you have to master. The first thing you got to master is you got to understand that people will be inspired not by just what you say, they'll be inspired by what you do. You have to be a leader who, leadership is a noun, but you have to make it a verb. That leadership is what you do. That if you people willing to see you put in the work, put in the time, fight right alongside with them, commit to work as long as they're willing to work to get it done, people get inspired by leaders who are willing to work alongside them. And so if there's early mornings and late nights and you're willing to be there for some of those early mornings and late nights, people are inspired. If you're willing to not throw your people under the bus and you owned the accountability around it, and when things go well, you share the responsibility for the success, that builds a good culture. And it really all boils down to your willingness to serve the people that you lead. I have a concept that I talk about, that the best leaders know how to serve first and lead second. That your service is the prerequisite of leadership. Your service is the prerequisite of leadership. And so the context, are you willing to help solve the problems for your team? Nobody wants to be on a team where they don't feel like they're equipped to be successful, and that they don't have a leader that has their back. And I teach people that regardless of whatever team you're on, regardless of the team that you lead, your team members are asking 3 questions, even though they maybe never verbalize them to you. They're always asking these 3 questions. Number 1 is, do you care about me? Do you care about me? And that's me as a person. The second question is, are you willing to help me? Are you willing to help me to be successful in my job or my role? And then the third question is, can I trust you that you're going to do what you say you're going to do and to have my back when things get tough? Every team member wants an answer of yes to that question. Those questions. Do you care about me? Are you willing to help me? And can I trust you? And as a leader, you got to think about, when I'm building culture inside my organization, can every team member on my team answer yes to that question by how I carry out my actions as a leader? Do I care about them? Am I willing to help them? And can they trust me? If you don't have those three pieces, you cannot build a world-class culture in an organization.
Oh man, I love that. I especially love those questions. It is 100% true. And unfortunately, I'm seeing the inverse of it right now with someone. A good friend of mine, actually, helping them out because, situation at work, and basically this person asked one question and got one response, but that response was no to those three questions, right?
Wow.
It's brutal. And I was just like, so I'm helping them out and I'm trying to, they ask for my advice and I'm giving it to them. And in the end, it's up to them to what they're going to do. But it's like, it's sad because I've been in the organization before and it was not that way. So when you leave an organization and then you go and then you hear stories and like, oh man, it changed. Unfortunately, the problem we have is that we change every 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So people come and go all the time. We're constantly every year it's a new rotation in a military unit. So, and especially when you get at the senior level, those cultures change on a dime. Like one day it's one way and the next day it's literally completely a different way. So it's a problem that we go through. But yeah, those three questions, that's great, man. And it's definitely something for the audience out there to think about. And sure, maybe you don't get that, but you can give that to your people.
Correct.
Right? If you're in that middle role, just because you don't get that doesn't mean you can't give it.
Yeah. So, the most powerful thing about in any position, so if you're not the CEO or the top dog or the general, but you might be in middle management, okay? You have some authority and responsibility. And middle management is a tough spot. It's the position that I call you have enough of a position to look like you're in charge, but not enough authority to execute everything that you want in charge. And so you're in the middle space. But guess what? If you lead any team whatsoever, any people, whether you manage a team of 1 or a team of 5, or maybe it's just a team of 10, you can execute these kinds of strategies down to your team. Build a culture on everything that you can control. I have a concept that I call control, influence, lead. Your responsibility is to control what you can control, influence what you can't control, and if you can't control the influence, just be the leader that you want to see. That's it. And so if you're leading a team and you want to be treated with respect, you want your boss to care about you, you want your boss to trust you, or you want to trust your boss, or you want to make sure your boss understands who you are as a person and you're not getting that, make sure your team get it. Because if you give them that comfort level to say yes to all three of those questions, then they will run through a wall for you. And if they're willing to run through a wall for you and execute for you, the leader that you report to cannot help but to see how successful your team is and then reward that by giving you more responsibility or try to get everybody else to do what you're doing. And you can change the culture in an organization with that type of leadership.
Absolutely. I love that you were just mentioning about worrying about what you can control, because no word of a lie, I did a live video about that today in my Facebook group. Man, it's hilarious. The parallels we are going on today is insane.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I like it. They say, what do they say? Great minds think alike, and apparently so do ours, right?
Right. That's right.
So you've seen a lot. You've got a lot of experience, and I love learning from people's mistakes.
Yeah.
And I love that whole growth mindset aspect, right? And it comes actually from my dad growing up. He's like, listen, a smart man's a man who's made many mistakes. And it kind of just stuck with me my whole life. So talk to me about a few of the ones that you've seen people take on in their leadership roles throughout your time.
Yeah. So, there's a lot, and I'll give you probably the three biggest ones that I think are the biggest mistakes. Is that there's no organization that is perfect, And we all experience unfairness at some point in time in our organization. We see things that are not right. So for instance, somebody is very deserving of a promotion and they don't get the promotion, but somebody else gets it. Or you ask for certain days off and you always get those days off. But yet when I ask for a day off to be with my wife or my daughter on her birthday, I get told no, that I can't get those days off. And everybody sees the unfairness that happens in an organization. The leader sees that unfairness, but never is willing to acknowledge the unfairness that exists. So what I see as a big mistake for leaders is not mastering the acknowledgement and the apology around when something goes wrong. So here's the context. When I got married, I've been married almost 19 years. And I got some advice when I got married. And they told me to master these 3 phrases. Here are the 3 phrases you need to master if you want to stay married a long time. Yes, you're right, and I'm sorry. And as a leader, what saying yes, you're right, and I'm sorry is about is saying yes to other people's ideas. The worst leader is the leader who thinks they know it all and that they have all of the answers and their way is the only way to do things. So sometimes you got to say yes to other people's ideas. And it's a mistake if you never are willing to have an open mind and an open heart and be open to other people's ideas to say yes. That's a big mistake that I see, is that you get in a leadership position and you think because I got the title, that means I have all of the answers. You don't have all the answers. So learn to say yes to other people's ideas. Say you're right when other people point out that you're incorrect. When you make a mistake or go the wrong direction, be okay with saying, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong. You're wrong. You're right, and I'm wrong. Be okay with that. And the third one is I'm sorry, which is when you make a mistake, apologize. Apologize. How many leaders make mistakes and refuse to apologize? Refuse to admit the mistake. And those things destroy morale. They destroy confidence people in you. They make people think that you don't really care about it because you're not willing even to admit that you made a mistake. Because when you show the human side of you, and all of us make mistakes, there isn't a perfect person at any level. When you show people that you're apologetic for the mistakes you made and then take action to correct the mistake, you build confidence in people that you're a leader that's willing to make things right. And so I see in a lot of the organizations that I work with, companies that bring me in to speak, when we start to have these conversations, it all starts to boil down to leaders who aren't willing to say, yes, you're right, and I'm sorry. They don't even acknowledge the injustice or the unfairness that might be happening in an organization. Somebody gets chewed out for something that they didn't do, and everybody knows it's not right, but the leader never acknowledges, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. They write people up for stuff. I mean, it's all kinds of pettiness that happens in a work environment. And the leaders who learn how to apologize, admit that they're wrong, and then take action to correct those mistakes are the ones who build great culture. And the ones who don't are the ones that force people to make a decision that they're ready to quit. And what do I mean quit? You might not even be able to physically quit, but you might mentally quit. You're going to do the bare minimum just so you don't get fired or demoted or lose what you got. You're not going to be enthusiastic about it. You're not going to run through a wall for them. You're not going to stay late and come early. You're not going to do the extra things to make the organization great if you don't believe in a leader because they're not willing to apologize or to acknowledge that they're not the expert and take the arrogance away. If they're not willing to do that, you'll mentally quit long before you physically quit. And that's why if you look at in America, I read a statistic in Forbes magazine, 2 million people voluntarily quit their job every single month. And 57% of those people quit because of bad management or bad leadership. They don't quit because of money. They don't quit because of opportunity, they quit because of the leader that they work for. The majority quit because of the leader. And so this happens way too much. And that's why we got to have leaders who know how to build a world-class culture.
Man, there's so much in there. I don't even know where to start. But I want to go back to the beginning because you highlight basically 3 of the core characteristics that I feel like are in leadership. One is ego, the other one's humility, and the final one's compassion, right?
Yes.
Ego, you got to lose it. As a leader, you cannot have an ego.
Yes.
You got to have that ability to say, yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or sorry, that's humility. To say yes. And then humility is say, yeah, you're right. Because you can't have that. Again, it goes back to ego. You can't have the ego to think you know it all, because guess what? You don't. You know. And one of the best words of advice that I got, and so I'm a graduate of the Royal Military College up here, which is like your guys' West Point, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, literally, one of the last days there, as I'm like dropping off my gear that's for the college, one of the senior NCOs is like, my last word of advice to you guys is you don't know squat. Right. Different word, but anyway, we'll keep it clean. Right. And it's just like, you know what? It's so true. Every job you go into, you don't know jack. You know absolutely nothing. And I keep that. And then the final bit is compassion, right? Having that compassion and that love for your people. There's so much love. And I love that whole bit about the reason why people leave organizations isn't because they're not engaged or, their work or anything. It's mostly because they got a crap boss. And I don't even like referring to those people as leaders. Because in my mind, they're not leaders. They're what I refer to as bosses.
They might be managers. They might just be a person in charge, but they don't exhibit leadership.
No, not at all. So I always refer to them as quote unquote bosses, right?
Yes.
That's all they're doing. They're just bossing people around. I got one last question before we finish this up, because I just feel like it's a really good segue into this. So, you're just finishing up talking about how people leave organizations because of their crap bosses, we'll call them. How's the best way for leaders? So let's assume that the senior leadership gets their act together, realize that the middle guy, the middle manager, or even senior middle guy was a crap boss, chucked him and put you in. What are some of your best ways, some of your best advice for now, new leaders coming into a job? How are they going to now engage their employees to get this morale back? Because no doubt the culture is dying, morale's in the tank, productivity is, like you said, barely chucking along, just enough to keep the organization afloat, whatever type of organization that is, whether it's business or nonprofit and everything in between. So how can leaders come and engage their employees to get that back?
Yeah, so that's a great point and segue, and I talk about this in my book, The Presidential Principles. If you're a new leader into an organization, your most important responsibility is to know the people that you lead. And I tell every new leader, when you walk into an organization, the first thing you should do is to take whatever time it takes to do a one-on-one with every person.
Absolutely.
You got to do a one-on-one.
Hell yeah.
You got to do a one-on-one. I went into a job one time in a very large organization. I was at a very senior level. And my barometer is the first 100 days. Like the president in America, we talk about you set the tone by your first 100 days. I did 141 one-on-ones in my first 100 days.
Nice.
And it was at people at all levels, peers, people below me, all throughout the organization. And my questions were, who are you? So tell me about you. Don't just tell me your name, but what's important to you. Okay. And then how long have you been here? What's one of the best things about this organization? And if you were in charge, what's one thing that you would change? And then I would ask the question, what do you think I've been brought here to do? What do you think my job is? And let them tell me what they think my job is. Because I got a title. I know what my job is. I know what the description says. But I want to know what my team thinks is my responsibility. Because they're going to tell you, they might say your job is to come and clean up this cesspool of a place. Or your job is to get this loose cannon in line who gets to do whatever he wants to do while the rest of us get held accountable for everything. They'll tell you what the problems are in the organization. And then the last thing your responsibility is to make a list of all of those problems. Make sure you know who your people are. Make sure you know what makes them tick. What's their why? Because everybody has a different why. You came into this organization for a different reason than I came into this organization. So I want to know what your why is. And if you do good one-on-ones, understand people's why, understand what they love about the organization, what they would change about the organization, and what their interpretation of what your responsibility is as a leader, that gives you your game plan and your blueprint for the problems that you're supposed to solve right out of the gate and how you get people turned around. Because every person is looking to see, did you just get put in as a figurehead to keep the status quo going the way it's going? Or are you really going to come in and fix the problems that we've had as an organization? Because people are waiting and watching. If you don't solve any problems in the first 100 days, then they're going to say, you know what? This is the same old, and let me check back out and mentally quit on the organization because they brought in another leader who's not doing anything to change anything. And so it's really a challenge if you were a peer who then get promoted in leadership. Because that happens sometimes, that you are buddies with guys, y'all started at the same time, you're on the same level, and then all of a sudden you get put into the leadership position. And now you got to lead your peers. And so, again, thinking about that context, you have to solve problems for people. That's what people expect of a leader, is to solve problems. If there's something that's keeping me from being successful, your job as a leader is to remove whatever that impediment is from you being successful and connect with people on a personal level to understand what's their why are they at work, why they're in the organization. And your job is to be a solution and not a problem.
Love it. Absolutely love it. In fact, my last job, I had a squadron commander over, about 200 folks, and I met with every single one. Every single one, man. One way or another, I made sure I talked to every single one of those people. And one of the things I like to do for the audience out there, I like to start from the bottom, work my way up, because, it's multi-layered, right?
Yes.
And what I'll do is I won't go to the next level until I got that bottom level complete. So yes. Now I got like all the input from, a section.
Yes.
And then now I'm having the interviews with the section commanders. I'm like, hey, this is what your guys are saying when we're going on. Like, what's your take on this? Yeah. And then I get all the section commanders. Then all of a sudden I'm up to troop level, like commanders. I'm like, okay, this is what your troops are saying. And I work my way all the way up through.
Fantastic. That's a great approach because, again, the front line are going to tell you the real deal. They're going to tell you stuff that nobody else sees, that nobody talks about, but is the biggest problem to them. You're going to hear it from them first and foremost. And because you reached all the way down, they ain't going to have no hold bars about, they're not going to hold back anything. They're not going to pull any punches whatsoever. And that's the most salient and actionable intelligence you can have as a leader in any organization.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna circle this conversation right back to the beginning because you were talking about how Barack Obama didn't have any yes men around him and stuff like that. So when I took over from that job, I took that and I was doing my initial just walk around, and one of my troops was maintenance. So we had a guy, a civilian employee anyway, and he's more referred to as a material type technician. So welding, painting, all those types of things. So he's working on one of the trucks. And he comes out and he introduces himself. And for 45 minutes, this guy just gave it to me because they're understaffed, under-resourced, underfunded, too much work, not enough time, blah, 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 for 45 minutes. So after, when the troop commander looks at me, he's like, sir, I'm so sorry. Well, I said, hell no, this is exactly what I need.
Yes.
I don't need the fluffy crap because that's just painting the wrong picture.
Yes.
This is what I need. He is giving me gold.
Yes.
And you know what? Who did I go to when I wanted to know the ground truth of what's going on?
Right back to him.
Right back to him. Because he would tell me, man.
Yeah. So. That's good. That's awesome, man. It's good to hear that you are living the values in which you believe and you share with your audience, because it's a rare trait to have a leader who knows how to do it and knows how to do it the right way. And that's actually why I stay in business, is because most people don't know how to do it. And my goal would be to build a world-class culture everywhere and work myself out of a job and let me go find something else to do. But because we know how to build good leadership culture, inspire people, empower people, and lead for a legacy. That our service is about the legacy that we create for others who come along after us.
Man, you're hitting so many points. We could keep talking for the whole night. I'm serious. But let's wrap this up. So I got one last question. I shoot all my guests out there.
Yes.
And that is, to you, what makes a great leader?
I'll go back to what I said something very on. A great leader is a leader who makes things right for the people that they lead. That's it. That's what makes a great leader, is that you see a problem, you solve it for the people that you serve. The people that you serve, period.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, that's pretty simple, but at the same time effective, man. Powerful. Anton, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you on the show here. I know you got a bunch of resources. You got a couple of books that are out. So this is your time to feel free to give yourself a shameless plug. Where can people find your stuff?
So this is what I'm going to do special. I'm going to do something special for your listeners. Is I'm going to give them a free chapter download of my new book, The Presidential Principles. Is where I share one of my most important lessons of leadership that doesn't involve Barack Obama. It actually involves the 44th Vice President of the United States, Dan Quayle, who was George Bush Sr.'s vice president. And it happened on a military base. I'm a military brat, Navy brat. I'm a fourth generation brat, actually. My father served, my grandfather served, my great-grandfather served in both world wars. So if you go to antongunn.com/free chapter, antongunn.com/free chapter, I'll send you a download of this chapter of my book. And if you love it, I would encourage everybody to get the book. But you can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Anton J. Gunn. You can find me on LinkedIn and on Facebook at Anton J. Gunn as well. And I got a YouTube channel, Mr. Anton J. Gunn. You can connect with me there. Subscribe to my channel. I share a lot of videos of leadership tips to help you to be a better leader in the world in which you lead and work. And I'm teaching leaders how to make things right for the people that they lead.
Awesome, man. Audience out there, easy as always, just go to movingforwardleadership.com/67. No, this is not 67. What am I saying? 68. I just recorded 67 about 3 hours ago. movingforwardleadership.com/68. And all the links are going to be in there in the show notes. Anton, man, pleasure again having you on the show. Super interesting chat. I feel like we could probably spend another 3 to 4 hours talking easy, especially with your experiences up there at the White House. But no, man, thanks for coming on the show and talking to my audience.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate the opportunity. You got a great show and a great topic and a great focus. And keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. We can make this world a better place for leaders by the work that we do.
Final parallel before I leave. I literally say, keep pushing, keep trying, keep moving forward in every podcast.
Wow, man. The stars are aligned tonight, brother.
Love it. All right. I didn't stick by. Anton, again, thanks, man, for coming out.
Thank you.
So what did you think? Pretty interesting conversation, wasn't it? I absolutely loved how he was describing how President Obama listened diligently to everybody. And it's something that you have to do at all levels. It doesn't matter if you're the president or the prime minister, whatever level of leadership you're at, or if you're a team leader. You have to listen to those that advise you. Listen to those who have the experience that you don't necessarily have. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's your decision, but you have to make the best informed decision that you can make at the time that you can make it. Well, that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for coming out as always and listening to the podcast, supporting the podcast. And seriously, if you're interested in learning more, just go to movingforwardleadership.com and check me out. Shoot me a message. Come to the mastermind. Follow me on the Facebook page, Instagram, whatever floats your boat. Really, it doesn't matter. Or just simply go to old school email and shoot me an email. because I love connecting with you and hearing about the success stories that you're all having from your development through listening to the podcast and basically reaching out and grabbing the resources that I'm providing for you. It is the best feeling ever. It's the reason why I keep doing this podcast on my own time, day in, day out, for you all, because it's what brings joy to me. So thank you again. And if you want to say thank you back to me, you can just do a couple simple things, and it's called R squared S squared, right? Rate and review the podcast so others can see what great things we're doing here at Moving Forward Leadership. Share it. Share it with someone who you think would be interested in learning about Anton's story and his experience with Barack Obama. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so you don't miss another great episode if you're not already subscribed. And you can do that simply by going movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, keep pushing, keep trying, keep moving forward. Take care now.